And you can see my full interview with the Deputy Prime Minister, Warren Truss, in about 40 minutes' time here on AM Agenda. Right now we are going to cross straight to our panel. Well, cross not quite. They're right here with me in the Canberra studio. Ed Husick, Josh Frydenberg, great to have you with us.
Good morning. It's like it's Saturday already.
Oh, what do you mean by that?
Because you're here.
Oh, that's good. Saturday agenda.
Are you going to be less grumpy?
I'll try.
I should do a campaign with Angelo, Make Lippo Laugh campaign.
Well, I'm laughing already. Let's get into it.
Not to talk about Qantas, Ed?
Oh, well, that's what for you guys. Yeah, that's right.
Off to a good start. Let's get into Qantas. Ed Husick, perhaps to you. Why is Labor prepared to continue with a stalemate in the Senate when Qantas has said this is something that will help them? Changing the Sales Act.
Well, because we want to see Qantas strong. As a result of that, we also want to see that Australians will have jobs here. We want to see our national carrier be able to compete on the world and domestic stage, but not at the expense of seeing all these jobs disappear in the blink of an eye. So for us, it's critical that we be able to, we're keen to work with the government on this issue, but we're not interested in playing political games, and that's all that we're getting now. If it's trying to float this notion that it's the carbon tax responsible for Qantas's woes, which Qantas says that's ridiculous, that's not what we're saying, or if it's just putting up an option that they know will not float in this parliament.
Isn't Qantas the best place to know what's best for the company?
Well, Qantas has put forward a number of ideas as to what they'd like to see happen, one of which was rejected out of hand by this government, which was in relation to the debt guarantee. So, I'm surprised that there is no plan B. Well, actually, when it comes to protecting Australian jobs, there's never a plan B with this government, just an exit strategy.
So on that debt guarantee, what sort of advice are you aware of that the government received that indicated that it wouldn't be the best way forward, and what did that advice say?
Well, look, the government takes advice from many quarters, and of course its primary source of advice is its own departments. It took that advice and the Cabinet made a decision not to provide the debt guarantee. Now, this is not what Labor wanted, because Labor always wants the government to be bailing out commercial sectors without thinking about what does it mean for the taxpayer or what does it mean for the broader economy. But we've taken very decisive action here. In our decision to repeal Section 3 of the Qantas Sales Act will put Qantas on a level playing field. In fact, David, it's the type of action that Martin Ferguson, a senior cabinet minister in previous Labor governments, talked about himself in 2002. The other point is we're going to get rid of the carbon tax. Now, $106 million in just 1 year for a bill for Qantas for the carbon tax is very significant. In fact, if you put Qantas's carbon tax bill for last year and for the coming year together, that's about the equivalent amount of their recent loss. So it's a very significant figure. Labor's got its head in the sand. It's denying the reality. We're trying to create a level playing field.
All that's very well, trying to create this level playing field, but neither of those options are going to get through the Senate, certainly in the immediate term, the carbon tax or the changes to the Qantas Sales Act. So why isn't there a plan B?
Well, we're certainly very hopeful to get both of those pieces of legislation through the Senate, whether it's the new Senate after July 1 or whether Labor has a change in their position. But, Bob Day has already said, the Family First senator that's coming in from South Australia, that he would entertain the changes to the Qantas Sales Act. Let's just see what the negotiations lead to in terms of the Senate.
What about
I just wanted to pick up another point. Josh just mentioned then about Martin Ferguson. I mean, we can go back and do dueling historical quotes. I mean, Joe Hockey railed against possible foreign investment lifts in Qantas when he was in opposition. My issue as well is that there's this inconsistency where foreign investment is seen as good for Qantas now, but it wasn't seen good to apply for GrainCorp. I mean, you either need to have a consistent position on this or not, and we don't have any sense of uniformity or consistency or standard approach in terms of what is good in terms of the broader economy and what is good for firms to survive on the world stage. And
but do you want to give a debt guarantee? Do you want to give a debt guarantee to Virgin? And do you want to give a debt guarantee to Virgin?
And for you to then argue, for example, well, the carbon tax added up over 2 years and say it equals this year's loss. I mean, that's just that is just bouncy maths. I mean, you really do need to take on board what Qantas said, which is they did not see that the carbon tax was an issue for
Josh,
them.
is there a problem with the narrative for the government when it comes to the GrainCorp decision, but also the paid parental leave scheme, which is very, very generous and goes against the grain of ending the age of entitlement?
Excuse the pun. Look, just on the issue of consistency, we've been very strong under fire here, whether it's SBC Admona, whether it's Toyota, whether it's Holden,
yeah, you're right,
or whether
anti-jobs.
it's Qantas. No, not anti-jobs. Consistent that there's a role for government in terms of levelling the playing field and increasing productivity in the workforce, whether it's IR changes.
By levelling, you mean all those jobs on the horizon just gone?
Or whether it's reducing the overall tax burden. That's what we're on about, right? Creating the playing field in which the corporate sector can prosper and create jobs. Because it's not government, wake up, it's not government, it's business that actually creates jobs.
Oh, so what happened with that whole we'll create 1 million jobs over 5 years pledge? You know, when Tony Abbott's knuckles went white holding Real Solutions, and he said, we'll create 1 million jobs over 5 years.
And we are creating lots and lots of jobs.
You're creating a million?
Well, that's the goal, and we will do it.
Still the commitment?
Absolutely.
Okay, just on Qantas before we move on, and to you, Ed Husick, what are these negotiations between Qantas and unions? Qantas is asking workers, engineers in particular, to forego a 3% pay rise. Is that something the workers should consider? Does everyone have to come to the table on this?
Well, through enterprise bargaining, I mean, employers and employees, sit down to look at how can we structure an agreement that's in the best interest of the company and also the people that work for it, and they should definitely go through that process and see, what will suit the times.
This was an agreement, according to the report in the Australian today, it was an agreement that was already brokered to lift wages, and now Qantas is asking the workers, look, can we reconsider that? The union has said no dice at this point until we can have a closer look at the books, but should workers give up things that they've already agreed to help the company they work for?
A number of things. First, if there is going to be, or if people are going to suggest that there's a need to tighten belts, it needs to be everyone. Like, you just can't have a workforce do it and not have that same level of discipline across the board.
Well, the CEO's just taken 36%.
But the other point I was going to make too is a broader criticism that I've had for some time is that when it comes to enterprise bargaining, we say that employers and employees should negotiate, but then people from outside want to meddle in those negotiations. And I don't think it's up to government to be telling people what to do on this. They should, as we saw with this government, pressuring SBC to cut wages by up to 40%, it should be left to the employer and employees to sort that out, what's in the best interest of that enterprise.
David, can I just say, well, it's true, they need to work it out together. It's between the company and its employees. Absolutely, that's right. But the wages bill, as a result of legacy union deals for Qantas, is higher than its competitors. 24% is the proportion of its wages bill to its revenue. And when you look at, for example, Cathay Pacific, it's 15%. When you look at Singapore Airlines, it's 11%. So relative to its competitors, and they're the companies that Qantas is up against on these international routes, it is paying more for its wages bill.
So it's always an outrageous solution.
What about the board, that just briefly before we move on? The board itself, now yesterday Tony Abbott observed that the company could be profitable under good management. Was that a vote of no confidence in the current management?
Oh, not at all. Look, the issue of management and the board is one for the shareholders.
Because to say that the company could be profitable if it had good management, it's not profitable now.
Well, it was profitable just a couple of years ago. I mean, there's no secret that some of its decisions, like entering into the Asian market, running, the budget airline Jetstar together with the full carrier, namely Qantas, against each other, could, cannibalise your own business model, right? And that is an issue for the company going forward. Also, trying to hold on to a 65% domestic market share when Virgin is aggressively, putting hundreds of thousands of seats on the market for the domestic market. 900,000 seats Virgin put in extra in 2013. They're the competing pressures that management have to weigh up, and the result is for people to see in terms of the profits. So that's an issue for them.
Ed Husick, some of your colleagues have called for Alan Joyce to step down. Do you share their views on that?
I've been critical of Qantas in times past. I thought that, grounding of 66,000 Australians was one of the most diabolical things I'd seen out of corporate Australia for quite some time. But now's not the time to be scoring those type of points. We've got to find a way to keep our national carrier. And as an MP, I'm not going to go in and be talking in terms of the complexity of the aviation industry, particularly in relation to what happens with Qantas, and tell them which way they should be structuring their operations. I mean, you know, there might be others that are more comfortable with that, but I just think the main thing is we've got to keep our national carrier, we've got to protect jobs and make sure that we've got a viable aviation industry here in Australia.
Okay, quick break here on AM Agenda. We'll be back with more right after this.
Ho comprato cose nuove con la tua nuova fidanzata.
Ma principessa, io ho comprato tutte queste cose nuove per te.
Per me? Oh, Marco!
All that just over a car.
It's not a car, Ruth. It's an Alfa Romeo.
Short of cash? Need a loan till payday? For cash loans of $250 to $1,500, catch the Cash Train! Go online now to get a